Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti, and we are going over NXT TakeOver War Games 2, an unbelievable night Saturday night, and what was going to be 4 matches ended up being 5 matches, and we'll start it off with Matt Riddle versus Kassius Ohno, which literally took 3 seconds to have the match.
Yep. Yeah, so an impromptu little match there. Matt Riddle came out, cut a quick promo, challenged Kassius Ohno. He came out. He ended up knocking him out with a knee within the first second of the match, pinned him 1, 2, 3. Good way to get him on the card. The fans were happy. Good way to open the show. So it was what it was. It was good for the moment.
Does this help Matt Riddle look stronger more, or does it make Kassius Ohno look weaker more? Because Kassius Ohno is trying to be this like knockout artist and make himself look really strong, and then he gets beat in 3 seconds with one knee. It looks really bad. And I mean, give credit to Ohno for selling the knee. And looking like he got his bell rung really quick. So he does a good job of putting Matt Riddle over, but this does look bad for Ohno.
It looks bad, but at the same time, you got to think that this is going to essentially set the table for what's going to be Matt Riddle's first legitimate feud in NXT. So they're supposed to be having a match, I believe, Wednesday on NXT. I imagine the next takeover that'll lead up into that, and then we'll see Matt Riddle in his first feud there. So I think this is a good first feud for him. Kassius Ohno is somebody who's been in NXT, got released, came back. He's got a legitimate name. He has a big presence from the independent scene from his younger years. So this is a good first step in the right direction for Matt Riddle.
It definitely is. But let's head on to the scheduled matches. And before we do that, just want to remind our viewers to hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the Royal Rumble. And if we do that, we got some exclusive YouTube content for you on there. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe and put a review on your favorite podcast provider so that we get seen more and heard more on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Now that, with that said, let's head over to the main card. And it's Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane, 2 out of 3 falls for the NXT Women's Championship. The first fall went to Shayna Baszler, and I thought this was a great way to start it off. Kairi Sane, as soon as the bell rings, attacks Shayna Baszler and goes all off on her, and she's looking really strong. It goes out to the outside, but then when Kairi Sane throws Baszler back into the ring, the ref is distracted by Baszler. In comes Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke to attack Sane, leads Sane back into the ring. Kara Fuda clutch, and Baszler gets the first victory.
Right.
And I thought this was a great way to start this and incorporate Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir into this match as the heels should get.
Yeah, and you had to know that from what happened at Evolution, what transpired there, that they were going to be involved in one way or another. Will this eventually lead to a four horsewomen versus 4 horsewomen feud? I don't know. I guess we'll have a better indication of that tonight. One of the things I want to point out is the ability for NXT, their ability to prolong feuds. So this feud has actually been going on for quite some time, going back to the Mae Young Classic last year. And every time I watch these two in the ring, 1, it's a really good match, but 2, it's always feeling fresh. It never feels like it's forced or that the feud is stale at any point, which is something I think Raw and SmackDown suffers from quite a bit. So credit where credit's due. Good match, and this could be the blow off to the feud, but I'm not sure.
Well, as we get into further along in this matchup, we have the second fall where Kairi Sane ends up getting the victory. She does a great spot where she reverses the suplex into a DDT onto the apron. Then she goes and does the insane elbow onto all 3, Duke, Baszler, and Shafir, and then puts Baszler back into the ring. Insane elbow, 1, 2, 3. We have the second fall. So Kairi Sane looking good here. And then to start the third fall, she does 3 spears, or as they called it, the interceptor. I guess that has to do more with the boat because the interceptor, but still 3 spears to start it off. And then they're going back and forth, and then we get to the finish. And this is where I think the story is going, where Jessamine Duke distracts the referee. Marina Shafir throws Kairi Sane off the top rope. And then here comes Dakota Kai, and she attacks Shafir and then puts a huge boot into Jessamine Duke's face. Like, this was, wow, what a kick here. And then all of a sudden Io Shirai comes and does her moonsault, and that looked really good. But
Amazing.
then we get to the finish where Sane is going for the insane elbow. Baszler catches it, pins her, 1, 2, 3. Baszler retains. But here's where I think the story could further here. I don't know if this was intentional, but Kairi Sane's shoulder did get up before the 3 count. I don't know if that was intentional or she just botched trying to fight it and just had to have her shoulder go up. But you can either have that be another match at Royal Rumble or TakeOver before Royal Rumble, or this sets up a 6-woman tag between Shirai, Sane, and Kai versus Duke, Baszler, and Shafir.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think they go from here?
Well, I think this is the last we're going to see of these 2 women in one-on-one competition. I think if they do end up going to the well one more time, like you said, a 3-on-3 match is probably more logical. So that's probably the direction they're going to go until, Baszler or all 3 of the women get called up, because I imagine that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're recording this Sunday morning, so we don't know what happened at Survivor Series, but I believe even though she still has the NXT Women's Championship, we could see Baszler at Survivor Series.
Mm-hmm.
Only time will tell. By the time this episode goes on air, we would know if she does or not. However, let's move on to the next match. And this was a beating.
Yeah.
Aleister Black versus Johnny Gargano. This was probably the stiffest match I've seen in either WWE or NXT in such a long time. Yeah. I mean, this is in comparison to, or I think is the closest you'll ever see to like a Tomohiro Ishii versus Minoru Suzuki in New Japan. This is NXT's version of that. Mm-hmm. They were just beating each other up. I am surprised Johnny Gargano is not waking up this morning with a concussion.
Yeah, well, I would say this. If you go back to, like you said, the first match of the night with Kassius Ohno and Matt Riddle, the knee that Ohno took that night, that really set the tone for what we were going to see transpire throughout the rest of the night. That prefaced everything that we were going to see going forward, because every single one of these matches was hard-hitting, in your face, no holding back, no holds barred. This match, to me, I think was probably the hardest hitting of all of them when you take into account the kicks, the knees, everything else in between. Amazing match. Johnny Gargano, as a heel at first, I didn't know if it was going to work or if it was going to click. Last night, to me, I just thought he did an amazing job. The little things he did throughout the match to kind of get himself over. The way he was kind of antagonizing Aleister Black, almost mocking him. His record at NXT TakeOvers, I think, is like 1-6. But you know what?
Bad?
Yeah, they had a graphic last night, and I want to say he was 1-5 last night, and he lost last night, obviously. But you know what? I don't think it's so much about wins and losses, because I always feel like he's going to be in a position to have a great match with whoever he's in there with.
Yeah.
He delivers every time he's in the ring, and as do everybody else on the NXT roster. But this match was amazing. I loved it.
It was really good, and I really liked a couple of spots here. The first one that I really want to talk about is Aleister Black is on the ground, and Gargano's looking to do the kick that he has.
Yep.
But before he goes to the kick, Aleister Black changes his seating to his, cross-leg seating that he does, and he goes, "Come on, Johnny, give me your best shot. Give me your best shot." Gargano goes for it. Black does the Matrix move and goes for the roll-up, and then kicks out. Gargano kicks out and then hits the knee. 1-2, kick out. That was a great chain wrestling, ring psychology, storytelling move there. And I just got to say, Aleister Black on War Games here was so impressive. And the moves that he was doing, he was channeling Jericho with some of the lion salts that he was doing. He was channeling Kenny Omega with his knees and his, he does the Rise of the Terminator move over the top rope. And it makes me think, for before last night, I always thought that if Kenny Omega were to come to WWE, they would have to limit his moveset, especially with the knees and maybe the one-winged angel. But after seeing what Aleister Black did last night, Omega can definitely transition to WWE with no problem.
It's not even what he did last night. It's what everybody was allowed to do. I mean, don't forget, during this match, we also saw the reverse Hurricane Rana.
Yes.
We saw another amazing spot, which stood out to me in this match, was that springboard DDT where it looked like Gargano was going to do almost like a suicide dive. He did the move where he normally would spear the guy and DDT him.
Yep.
He did that on the outside. We'll talk about the Aleister Black match, but there was some pretty big spots throughout the Ciampa and Dream match. But the whole thing just was so hard-hitting and so in your face, and nobody holds back on these NXT shows, which is why I like it so much, where when you watch, unless you're watching Brock Lesnar, you're getting a lot of, seems like watered-down content in the ring. At least that's the way it comes across, but kudos to these guys. They went in there and they really made a good impression on themselves.
And I think this had a really, really great finish. And because of this finish, I think this is the only time they will fight. I think this will be the only match. And this was definitely a blow-off, like I predicted in our NXT War Games prediction show. So the Black Mass, he hits it once, and this hurt. You could hear the smack on this first Black Mass. But then he catches him with his chest. He's catching Gargano. Sorry, pronouns, pal. Catches him with his chest, and he's standing there. And I thought this was going to be the mistake that Black makes and Gargano wins. But he doesn't. Gargano's dazed, and before he hits a second Black Mass, he says, "I absolve you for all your sins." And hits him with a second Black Mass. 1, 2, 3. This was an incredible finish to a match.
Yep.
Probably the best finish I've seen in a long time with any match that I've seen. Just for the storytelling and the ring psychology. I mean, Aleister Black really impressed me last night. I think this was his best match since being in NXT. Would you agree?
He's had some really good matches. I think the match he had with Almas was very good as well. But I mean, this is up there. But as you kind of said, this match was very good. It's one of my favorite matches from the night. Another spot I liked was when Aleister Black, everybody knows he does the moonsault into his kind of seated position. He did that right at the beginning of the match, and he looked to his left, and Gargano was right there. Gargano had actually kicked him in the face. So there were all these little nuances throughout the match, and that made it special. Right before the 2 Black Mass, you had that spinning knee. I mean, what else could you ask for out of professional wrestling match? This was great.
Yeah, they definitely took a beating, and I'm definitely thrilled to see that match. We'll see what Meltzer gives it in his star ratings. If he gives this lower than a 4.5, I will be shocked.
I don't think so. Daniel Bryan, take notes. Johnny Gargano's heel work as a smaller competitor. That's the guy you want to kind of model yourself after. That's the way you want to act in the ring.
Now, speaking of another great heel that we've seen recently on both NXT and WWE, Tomasso Ciampa defends his NXT championship against the Velveteen Dream. And I'm going to flat out say right now, this was the Velveteen Dream's best match ever. And if this is his swan song in NXT and he gets called up to the main roster on Raw or SmackDown this coming week, what a way to go.
Right. Yep.
He did everything. He had the ring skill, in-ring work was good. The personality, we already know he has the charisma. The crowd was super over with him the entire night. And his ring psychology, this reminds you of like Jake the Snake Roberts caliber ring psychology. That's how good he was last night. And give credit to Tomasso Ciampa too. The story that they were telling throughout this match was just unbelievable. Ciampa doing whatever it takes to retain Goldie, his NXT championship title.
Yep.
Velveteen Dream, at first, he was just doing whatever could get the crowd going. And even Nigel McGuinness, give him credit for his commentary during this match and saying, you know what? He's taking too long. And as the story and the match progresses, Velveteen Dream is getting smarter and smarter and trying to get faster and faster. One great point in this match that was great storytelling for Velveteen Dream to win the championship. They're both outside the ring, and the ref is counting them out. Velveteen Dream is starting to go in at 6. He stops himself and actually tells the ref, stop counting, and throws Ciampa in, gets in before the 10 count, and Nigel McGuinness does a great job in saying,
Brilliant ring awareness.
Great ring awareness. Yes, great ring awareness to know that he has to win the title by pinfall or submission. That's just the beginning of the great storytelling and ring psychology that these two had last night.
Yeah, I mean, everything about this match was great, from the story they told to the psychology to Velveteen Dream channeling his inner Hulk Hogan. I mean, I love the fact that he comes out at these takeovers. Everybody made a big deal about Call Me Up Vince, and I imagine everybody's going to be talking about how he came out dressed as Hollywood Hogan.
In Los Angeles, might I add.
Yep. And one of the coolest spots of this match was he teased like he was going to go for the leg drop, and that's where Nigel McGuinness was saying he's taking too much time. He didn't get it the first time. Eventually, they did end up going back to it, and the crowd went nuts for this.
Yes.
So that was one of the very cool spots about this. The way they were able to pay homage to some of the wrestlers of the past, like Bret Hart. You saw the sharpshooter figure 4.
The figure 4 off the ring post.
Off the ring post. You saw, obviously, the stuff with Hogan. And this really felt like it was an old school, in-your-face type match. The way they kind of told the story about Tomasso Ciampa having that knee injury. The way he loosened the boot, which I'm sure people are going to be talking about today. All of these things were done, and they always end up coming back to it. Like, this played a big part. The fact that he was saying his knee hurt, and Nigel McGuinness alluded to, oh, well, he's got all that fluid building up in his ankle now. How did the match end? His boot ended up coming off, and Velveteen Dream, I believe at the time, he went outside of the ring, right? And that played a big part in the finish.
So part of the finish was Velveteen Dream was going for the figure 4 leg lock, and he grabbed his boot, and Ciampa took off the shoe and kicked him outside. Now, that wasn't the finish itself, because
it was the sequence that led up to it.
That led to the sequence.
After.
So I believe this led to the superplex. Oh, no, they already had the superplex spot. So then Velveteen Dream comes back in, hits his Death Valley driver outside on the
throws him
pavement, throws him in, hits the Rainmaker elbow, kicks out, and then Ciampa rolls out. He's on the apron. Yep. Velveteen Dream quickly, and this is another point here that Nigel McGuinness points out. Now I think it was Percy Watson that actually pointed it out, that he is not taking time. He's going straight at him, goes for the Rainmaker elbow on the apron. He misses and lands in the mat, hurts his elbow, and sells the hell out of the impact. And they actually had to censor this. I saw the audio cut out because I'm sure he dropped an F-bomb or some kind of expletive, really selling the injury. Ciampa DDTs him onto the metal that was holding the two rings together, rolls him in 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and did you notice, even though Ciampa's the one delivering the DDT, talking about selling and telling a story, Ciampa acted like it hurt. He may have hurt himself, but the same thing, they had to censor him out, because if you're dropping back first on a piece of sheet metal that thick, you're going to get hurt too. And he sold it.
Yep.
I mean, these guys, when they get called up eventually, these guys are the future. They just have this special ability. And I can't wait to see when guys like Velveteen Dream and Tomasso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Aleister Black, you put them on the main roster. I mean, they've been able to deliver on a consistent basis at all of these takeovers. There's nothing that leads me to believe they won't be able to do it on the main card.
Now, before we head to the main event, I do want to point out the camera work. Now, I work in television, so television production, it's kind of a thing of mine. And I do have to point out, there was a great camera spot. There's actually two here. The first one was where Tomasso Ciampa was trying to bring in the belt and hit Velveteen Dream with it, and the ref takes the belt, okay? So Ciampa is arguing with the referee, and they have a camera shot of just them arguing. All of a sudden, you see Velveteen Dream come out of nowhere and super kick Ciampa in the face. And then that goes for the pin. 1, 2, kick out, okay? The next camera shot right after this is Ciampa, or a little bit farther down, Ciampa goes for a pin and Velveteen Dream kicks out. Then they have a shot of Ciampa looking down on Velveteen, and the NXT Championship is right in front. And they slowly zoom into Tomasso Ciampa. This is the kind of stuff that WWE and NXT, this is the stuff that makes them the superior brand in professional wrestling. It's that camera work right there. And I know if this was freaking Kevin Dunne directing this show, we would have seen zoom in and zoom out and cut, and you wouldn't have gotten that. So you got to give credit to the camera crew last night for even furthering this storyline much better than what these two already were doing. Now, if you had to choose if someone is going up on Raw or SmackDown this week, is it Aleister Black or is it Velveteen Dream?
I think Velveteen Dream because he can have a larger impact, and if there's anywhere where he's going to go, it's going to be SmackDown because Daniel Bryan turning heel, which we'll get into, you don't have many guys over there that are legitimate face, with the type of charisma like Velveteen Dream has. So I'd like to see them both go up. And I think the more logical pick would be Velveteen Dream at this point. So I see him going to SmackDown.
I agree. I think Velveteen Dream is going to be going up if they do decide to have someone go up to the main roster this week. Aleister Black, after winning the match, Mauro Ranallo did put him over as saying he's back into the hunt for the NXT Championship. So I think maybe they have Aleister Black versus Tomasso Ciampa at the Royal Rumble TakeOver in Phoenix. So I don't think it's Aleister Black, but Velveteen Dream. I've been saying this for a year now. He's got it.
Many people have said it, yeah.
He just has it. And the fact that he's just 23 years old, this kid has got a career ahead of him. And he could do it as a heel. The character works now as a face. Put a rocket on him and shoot him to the moon, man. He's got it. Mm-hmm. And you could put him in the main event picture almost instantly on SmackDown Live. The problem is, I think Vince might make him too much of a cartoon character if they bring him up now. It's going to be tough. But we'll see if any of them do go up to the main roster.
Yeah, that's the rumor. You already you go online, and I'm not going to really put any stock in any of this just now, but they're already saying that as many as 4 people are going to be brought up this week. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not putting much stock in that.
If it is 4, I would think it's Baszler, Black, Dream,
Gargano.
I don't think Gargano, because I think there's still the story to tell with Ciampa.
I wouldn't bring any of them up yet. The main rosters on SmackDown and Raw are just way too congested. You have way too many guys.
Yes, I agree.
Far too many.
But I think,
and if you want these guys to be special, you have to give them room to. Look at Cien Almas, amazing talent, good in-ring ability. The one person who actually has a manager who can work effectively to his character, compliments him well. They don't do anything with him.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere for him to go because it's so congested on those main rosters. WWE is in a very hard spot, and we don't need to get into this whole discussion now, but they have way too much talent. Way too much talent. They have too many good guys in NXT, and if they really want to start looking to their future and trying to attract guys like the Elite to come over to have some great matches, they can have great matches with the guys that are already there. But you got to get rid of some of the fat. You got to trim the fat. Guys like, I don't want to say these guys aren't good, but guys like Jinder Mahal, what are you doing with him? Nothing. So what purpose does he?
Yeah.
Guys like that. You got to trim the fat. You got to make some room for these young, hungry guys to breathe and to evolve, become the stars that they're capable of becoming.
I agree that the main roster is. It's not that it's congested. I think the problem is they put all their eggs in one basket. And obviously we saw that with Roman Reigns. They were putting all their eggs in the Roman Reigns basket. And on SmackDown, they were kind of putting all their eggs in the AJ Styles basket. But now, since all this stuff is happening, you got Roman Reigns battling leukemia, and Becky Lynch becoming the hottest wrestler in maybe wrestling right now with any brand, things have to shake up. And now they realize, okay, we need to build more wrestlers. And you're starting to see that. And I think the heel turn with Daniel Bryan can spark some things. Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre, that aspect is sparking things. But, we're kind of veering off here in this discussion. So let's get back to War Games. Before we head to the main event again, let's ask one more question. Which match was better? Dream and Ciampa or Black and Gargano?
I think they were both very good, but I think Dream and Ciampa, because to me, one, it meant more because it was for the title.
Mm-hmm.
Two, one of the things that I didn't mention, which I thought was so impressive, was a lot of times with the crowds, especially when you're at a WWE show, they die when you have a match like Gargano and Aleister Black had. If you go back to back with two really big matches like that, the crowd dies out. The crowd didn't die out at all. As a matter of fact, if anything, Ciampa and Dream, because those matches were so comparable and so good, it's impressive that they were able to go out there and kind of re-up the match that kind of preluded that match.
Yeah.
So that was impressive. Based on what it meant, based on the ring psychology and everything that they did throughout the match, I thought that by a very, very small margin, Ciampa and Dream had the better match.
I agree. That definitely was the better match, but not by much.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking for the storytelling, the ring psychology, the classic way a wrestling match should be done, that is definitely the better match. If you are looking for two guys just beating the crap out of each other and putting everything out there, Black and Gargano is the better match.
Yep.
You're not wrong with saying either one is better. But personally, I will say that Ciampa versus Dream was just slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, Black and Dream had their best matches since they've been in NXT And just go to figure, they were facing each other last year at this time.
Yep.
And they had an incredible match against each other last year. But now let's head to the main event, the War Games match, the Undisputed Era. Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong going against the team of Ricochet, Pete Dunne, and the War Raiders. I will admit, while it was a good match, this was not better than last year's War Games. I honestly will say it was okay at best. Like, I did not think this match delivered like it could have.
Yeah, and these matches are going to be tough because you have so many people involved. You're incorporating cages and weapons and all of that stuff, so you're going to get bound to have those, like the one spot where everybody was on the top of the cage and there was a power bomb and a suplex, and those things really come across as very scripted when I watch matches.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I did think this was good. I don't think it was great. It was entertaining. It was a good way to close out the night. I think it had enough big spots where people went home happy.
Yes.
I don't think it was a bad match by any means. Again, going back to what we were talking about the whole night, the whole night was about ring psychology. Bobby Fish locking
Pete Dunne
in the cage there. I mean, little things like that really, really make a match. So I thought that was good.
Going up with that, though, with the storytelling, I think they started to do something, and then it didn't follow through the rest of the match.
War Raiders kind of pushing.
Yes, the War Raiders
Yep.
preventing Pete Dunne to enter the match. Now, you could have told this story one of two ways. You could have told it as, the War Raiders think that they have the better shot of winning, so they're getting in there to beat up the guys of the Undisputed Era.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you could do is the War Raiders having much more experience in wrestling than Pete Dunne. They're saying, hey, Pete Dunne is the longest reigning WWE champion in the modern era, over 500 and whatever days it is as United Kingdom champion. Let him be the freshest. They didn't tell either story. They were just like, yep, we're the War Raiders. We're going to outpower you. And So I thought they didn't really follow through with that, but I do like how at the end of the match when Pete Dunne and Ricochet both pin Adam Cole for the win, and they're the ones standing tall and they're standing on top of the cage, that they're planting the seed for one, a Pete Dunne versus Ricochet match down the line, but this could also lead to a Ricochet and Pete Dunne versus the War Raiders match that could lead to maybe WrestleMania weekend. So in a sense, they did tell the story, but they didn't really. It was more of an Easter egg than there it is, we're telling this story. I think also while the Bobby Fish locking Pete Dunne with his chain and lock was a great spot, getting Pete Dunne out with just the cutters, anticlimactic.
Yeah, it didn't really lead to anything major. It didn't, it didn't have anything. It didn't play into the outcome of the match.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I still thought it was a pretty good match.
It was a good match. I did like the 720 moonsault by Ricochet into everybody. That was a nice little spot. Maybe missed the mark a little bit, but I think it helps.
It's good enough.
It was good enough because he did land on his feet, and it was a great spot.
I was most impressed with Hansen.
Hansen
for
was
a big
good.
guy. He's very agile. I mean, he did a cartwheel, and then it was almost like we were watching Tajiri for a moment where he did the springboard
back elbow.
Surprising that a guy that big can be that agile and athletic.
And I did like the spot with Rowe where he took, was it O'Reilly in the power slam and then Roderick Strong in the power bomb and slammed both of them simultaneously. That was a great spot. I will say this about Hansen though, where he was clotheslining O'Reilly and Cole. It just seemed way too long.
I liked that spot.
It was a good spot, but he just looked so slow, and it made him look even slower because he's screaming as he's running. So it's like, it just took too long. And the fact that he just kept going and going and going for like almost the entire 3-minute block for that, I almost fell asleep on that spot.
Well, what do you think about the outcome? Did you anticipate that, or did you think the Undisputed Era was going to win?
Well, I predicted Undisputed Era was going to win, and I did think they were going to end up winning because of the story that they were telling in the beginning that the War Raiders were preventing Pete Dunne to get into the match. But again, they didn't follow through on that storytelling. So by the time everybody got in, it just ended up being a brawl for all.
Yeah.
And once they got to a point where Ricochet and Pete Dunne were kind of going 2-on-1 on Adam Cole, that's when I knew the match was going to end and they were going to end up winning. I did like the spot where Pete Dunne was surrounded by all four of the Undisputed Era and he attacking everybody. But I thought the spot of the match was you have on one ring, one team of Ricochet, Pete Dunne, and the War Raiders, and the other side you have the Undisputed Era. And they're standing off. And the great thing about this was who was facing who. Okay, so you have the War Raiders on the far end facing Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. That tells you where that road is going, that eventually you're going to have the tag team championship match between those four. Then you have the feud we already have between Ricochet and Adam Cole. And then what started this really for everybody, Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong, because it was Roderick Strong that turned on Pete Dunne when he joined the Undisputed Era. I thought that was a great way, and the camera shot was perfect, that it led to having Roderick Strong and Pete Dunne in the front of the camera. Great way to set this whole shot up.
Yep.
That was the reason this whole thing even started.
Yeah. Allow me to make a prediction.
Go ahead.
When Adam Cole goes up, I don't know when it's going to be, Roderick Strong and the Undisputed Era turn on him. Roderick Strong will be the new leader of the Undisputed Era, and Adam Cole's going to go up.
So you think he's going up on his own?
I'd love to see them go up as a group, but again, just how do you make that work? If they all go up, I mean, they did it with the Shield. And I think a lot of people would want to see a Shield versus Undisputed Era, but obviously with Roman Reigns being out, and Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins feuding right now, we're not going to get that. So if you bring all of them up, you muddy the waters even more.
Yeah.
So I don't see it. Adam Cole is insanely over.
Yes, he definitely is over.
He's another one of those guys that eventually he's going to get called up, I think. And the other guys, they have a good career ahead of them as well, but I think Adam Cole's going to come up aside from them separately.
I mean, I would not break them up at all. I wouldn't. If they're going to come up, I would want them to come up as the Undisputed Era, and they could just wreak havoc. Honestly, don't even put them in a specific brand just yet. Let them attack both brands, Raw and SmackDown, and make it like an NXT Invasion angle. Mm-hmm. Make it like the Nexus. And it could culminate at a Survivor Series where you have the Undisputed Era versus 2 from Raw, 2 from SmackDown. Do it like that. But, I mean, I could see what you're saying with Adam Cole. He's definitely the money. He's the guy out of all 4 of them. And O'Reilly and Fish can really help the tag team division on either brand. So that's why I would say bring them all up. They would really help in so many ways that if you just bring up Adam Cole by himself, it might not work the way that you want.
Don't sleep on Roderick Strong. He's a guy that was really kind of underwhelming when he came in as a face, but as soon as he turned heel, man, it just clicked. He's great. When he came in the ring last night from the start, he was on fire.
Yes, he was.
He's another one that is really good. They're all good.
So if you had to do like a Meltzer star rating on the 5 matches, we'll start with Riddle and Ohno out of 5.
I mean, how do you grade? I don't know. 3 because I understand what they were doing with it, and it's going to serve its purpose going forward to set up the feud.
Okay, just the fact that it was 3 seconds long, I don't think you could give it anything more than 1 star. Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane.
I'd probably give that 3.5.
I could say that. I'd say 3.25. Black and Gargano.
4.
I say 4.5. Anything lower than 4.5 is would be surprising out of Meltzer, I think. Ciampa versus Dream.
I'd give this one a 4.5 rather than a 4. The reason, again, is because of what it meant. It was for the title, the ring psychology, all of it worked. So 4.5 on this one.
I'm giving it 5. 5 stars, without a doubt. War Games match.
3.75.
I could see that. 3.75 isn't a bad mark. Maybe 3.5. Just because I think there were a few lulls in this match.
Yeah, there was a couple spots where it kind of slowed down a little bit and the crowd kind of died out. But kudos to these guys because they got them, once it picked up, they got them right back into it.
Yes.
So that was impressive.
So that is our NXT TakeOver reactions and the results for the show. Let us know in the comments what you think. And if you're watching on YouTube, obviously, make sure you hit subscribe and the notifications for more videos. When we get to 1,000 subscribers before the Royal Rumble, we will have exclusive content here on the YouTube channel. And of course, if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you subscribe and put a nice review for us so that more people can hear the Squared Circle Psychobabble. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti. Thank you for listening to the Squared Circle Psychobabble.